Representative Randolph, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I hear a lot from the front rows about being against individual mandates, but here we are pushing an individual mandate. We're saying that women can't possibly choose their own health care. We've got to mandate it as a legislative body. We've got to mandate for her to undergo a particular procedure before making a decision on her own. You know, someone had mentioned that this provides a choice. Somebody's going to have to review that one for me, because this provides no choice to a woman. It provides a mandate to the woman to undergo a particular proceeding. Then we hear from the front rows about we can't let government interfere between a doctor and a patient, I guess, unless you're a woman. Then we're going to not only let government interfere between a doctor and a patient, we're going to mandate that government interfere between a doctor and a patient. Then I hear, oh, this isn't nothing, it's just jelly on the belly. When you're in the first trimester, it's a whole lot more than jelly on the belly. There's a lot of times when you can't determine gestational period by simple jelly on the belly ultrasound. It becomes an invasive procedure that I'm not going to describe, because although this chamber seems to want to control it, they don't seem to really want a rational discussion about it. So I'm not going to go into the details of what that is, but let me suggest to you that it's a little bit more invasive than a jelly on the belly ultrasound. And with that, I know we say there's an exception for rape and incest, where 61% of women don't report rape because A, it's difficult to prosecute, whatever reason they don't report rape. I'm not going to go into why that may be, but the situation is that a lot of women are in that situation. Now we're going to mandate as a government that when that woman comes in, unless she's gone to the police and filed a police report, she's going to be mandated to undergo a procedure that could be invasive and could be emotionally traumatizing on her. And then we have the situation where women who have a fatal fetal anomaly, who've already undergone 3 or 4 ultrasounds, they may have gotten 3 or 4 different medical opinions. And it is determined that there's a fatal fetal anomaly, that pregnancy is not going to go to term. We want to talk about personal stories. I'm not going to go into the complete personal story, but I've had that situation with my wife. And now luckily, she had luckily is not a good word, she had a natural miscarriage rather than us having to terminate the pregnancy. But how dare this body say that for us to make that decision, before we can make that decision, and this bill specifically says, the person doing the terminating of the pregnancy has to do the ultrasound. So now, we would have had to undergo another ultrasound. And you act like this machine's in another room. Oh, you don't have to view it. You don't have to be described. No, it's only setting 1.5 feet from the bed. You don't think that a woman standing there with something a little bit more than laying there with something a little bit more than jelly on a belly can't hear or see that and undergo that emotional trauma that she may be forced to undergo by this body? It's ridiculous. Now, I can't go through all the different scenarios that may happen, and that's the point. This body can't go through real life. Stop putting ideological blinders on, stop believing the sky is green, and come back to the real world where there's a lot of different situations. In fact, so many people here today have told so many different stories. Some were positive about the wonderfulness of life, that the pregnancy ended up being fantastic. Some weren't. And that's the point. There's so many different scenarios. Why are we so afraid that a woman can't make a decision between herself, her doctor, her God, and her family? Why are we determined to say that the legislature will come in between her God, her family, and her own personal decision? That's what's offensive. That's where we should think of as offensive. So I ask that you think of all the different scenarios. We can't imagine. There are thousands upon thousands of different scenarios that can occur in a pregnancy, positive and negative. And we can't imagine sitting here today trying to cover each one of those. And that's why bills like this shouldn't be passed by a legislature, and why, as the front rows always say, the government shouldn't come between a doctor and a patient. So I ask for us not to come between a doctor and a patient, and we allow the doctors to make their best medical judgments, and we allow women in this state to make their best personal judgment. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker.